Welcome back to Mama Needs a Moment, and a special welcome to our Her Plus expert providers joining us for today's roundtable conversation on holistic beauty and wellness rituals for overwhelmed moms. This series is all about realistic, life giving practices that help moms feel grounded, restored, and more connected to themselves without adding more pressure, perfectionism, or impossible routines, because that's what we all want. Together, we're going to explore simple nervous system resets, mindset shifts, sensory grounding practices, connection centered parenting, and approachable beauty and wellness rituals that actually fit into real life. Before we dive in, each of our experts will briefly introduce themselves and share their area of focus. And don't forget, these conversations are also available in video format on our YouTube channel. All right, let's go ahead and get started.
Hello, everybody. I'm Tiffany Webb. I am the owner of Stillness and Skin Skincare Studio. I help women navigate and understand their skin during transitions and just really using skincare as a way to reconnect to themselves and own beauty on their own terms. So I'm work mostly with women in like their late 30s, going into 60s, dealing with perimenopause and menopause, but honestly, anybody in transition. So from teenager to young adult, your pregnancy, postpartum, any transition at all.
I'm Irene Gooch with Loving Lessons Sleep Solutions, and I support parents as a postpartum doula and sleep coach. And I work with families that have newborns through the school age season, and specifically with parents who are exhausted, overwhelmed, and they have tried everything with their child that's sensitive, very alert, and has a case of FOMO, fear of missing out. I use a holistic approach through the Calm and Confident Sleep Foundation to pinpoint the root cause of that sleep disruption. We build a clear plan together and give parents the tools to move forward with confidence. And parents then can learn to lead sleep and have sleep coaching success when they can show up and feel calm, confident, and rested.
I'm Naseem. I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I own Javon Coaching. It's a therapy practice and coaching practice that supports moms with anxiety, depression, perfectionism, people pleasing. And my coaching practice covers and supports women who are struggling with overwhelm, the identity shift in becoming a mom, and also supporting the communication with their partner and decreasing resentment.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Parise. I'm the founder of Great Days by Sarah because I think everyone, especially moms, deserve to have more great days. And I'm an ACE certified personal trainer and accountability coach. So I think food, fitness, and then finding your best self in motherhood. And I do everything under the 2% umbrella. So 2% of the day goes back to you. If you're not a mathematician, it is 28 and a half minutes. So we break it down to 28 minutes for yourself each and every day. So when we are our best, we can show up our best to everyone else we want to care for.
Motherhood comes with an enormous invisible mental load. The constant anticipating, planning, worrying, fixing, carrying. It can leave moms mentally exhausted, even when they appear to be functioning fine on the outside. Everything looks fine on the outside, but inside it's like that scribbly kids drawing in your brain, you know? Many moms don't realize how much anxious thinking shapes their nervous system and the daily experience that they have. How can we become more aware of the mental and emotional patterns so that we can move from reacting to responding?
When I work with clients who are experiencing anxiety and even moms specifically, I like to sit and say, like, what's coming up for us, obviously physically? How are we experiencing the anxiety in our body? And also, are we heightening our symptoms based on our internal or intrusive messages that we're saying to ourselves? So I like to slow down and basically say, is this thought helpful or hurtful? Am I really heightening the anxiety and making it worse in this moment by having hurtful thoughts, exacerbating the stress? How can I shift that to make it a more helpful thought? So if I'm nervous or stressed about something, I think it's important to just check in and say, okay, what do I need and what's coming up for me, and how do I challenge and shift these intrusive messages that I'm experiencing?
One of the big things that I hear from a lot of my parents that reach out to me, especially moms, is that they'll say that my child is always fighting me to go to sleep. And oftentimes, this is a really good time for us to like pause and breathe love and really listen and observe, like, what is actually happening for my child? And so I talk a lot about sleep communication with families because sometimes the misunderstanding is actually happening in that sleep window. Because sometimes what we assume is fighting is a child actually trying to put themselves to sleep. And, a lot of times if we misunderstand that, it can take a child like 20 to 30 minutes to fall asleep. But I'm like bouncing or moving and rocking and doing all the things. I'm taking on more of that responsibility and not sharing the work with my child. So that is a part of the process that I take families through. And even just understanding like the sleep communication, like, do I really understand what my child is communicating here? So I'm not taking on that responsibility, and that can be true in like the play windows and in the feeding windows and how all that builds up to the sleep windows.
Irene, that made me think of when our oldest was a baby and she was crying. I couldn't get her to sleep. And this kind of leads itself into the overfunctioning that Christy had talked about in a previous episode. I was overfunctioning and I still continue to overfunction today for them in certain areas, which would love to get into. But I was overfunctioning for her, trying to help her get to sleep, bouncing her like you were just talking about. And finally, I just laid her in the crib and I left the room and let her cry. And I was just so against just letting her cry. She literally cried for maybe 2 minutes and then she was asleep. And I was like, that wasn't that bad. That didn't feel that bad. But in the moment, I was like, oh my gosh, my child's crying. I've got to make it stop. So that really resonated when you had said that.
But Cindy, can I just clarify something? That wasn't really leaving your daughter to cry it out. You know what I mean? Like, because we think that like just because they're upset, like, like we're leaving them. But if we understand what they're communicating, like she was tired. She was saying like, Mom, I'm just tired. She's like, I'm just trying to go to bed. And if we can just step back and understand that, it can make a big difference because sometimes we're engaging into that power struggle with our little one. Like you're doing all this stuff and you're like, it's not working. So it's really important to just do that. I'm glad you had that aha moment.
For me, I think I take an approach with the moms as like a preventative. So trying to kind of stop anxiety in its tracks by using your calendar as your friend and your second coach, not necessarily against you. Like, yes, our calendars are all full. But when I ask people like, where do you fall on your calendar? Most moms laugh. They're like, what do you mean I'm on my calendar? And I said, well, if you look at my calendar in very bright red are my things that I do for myself. So when I meet a friend to walk, it's in red. When I do my little long loop to the bus loop and I drink my electrolytes, I block it off. So nobody can schedule time, nobody can take that time. And it's physically in my calendar to take time for me. And then I notice because we're not perfect, when things ebb and flow and those things come off my calendar is when my anxiety starts to creep in. So doing a little bit of the preventative ahead of time, if you can put yourself on your own calendar and make yourself a priority, I think it can really help in a lot of these situations.
Swing it back to the over functioning piece that we had talked about in a previous episode and just alluded to just previously. I think that I over function for my kids because, like Christy said, it just makes it easier. But in the long run, it's not helping anyone. But then I'm starting to think to myself, okay, if I have them do their laundry, this is they could ruin something. And lo and behold, I just ruined a jacket by putting in a blue shirt with it the other day. So, I mean, I am X amount years old and I still ruin stuff. So it's possible that they will ruin some things if they do it on their own, but that's how they're going to learn. I really would like to dig in a little bit more on mindset shifts that impact our parenting to make us overfunction, causing that anxiety. And Tiffany, I loved something that you had said in the previous episode about SAFE and the acronym that was, because as you were saying it, I feel like it was very applicable to so many different situations where you could stop. And I'd love for you to review that with everybody. But in that moment, also saying to yourself, is what I'm saying to myself in my mind, Irene in the previous episode had said, I get stuck in my mind. I do too. Is what I'm saying to myself, is it truth or is it a story that I'm creating? I am creating a story. If I'm taking my laundry example, if I stop, use the SAFE acronym, I'm creating a story in my mind that they will ruin the laundry if they do it on their own. Is this truth or is it something I'm creating? Well, there is an element of truth in there, but I'm creating it to try to keep everyone safe. And I'm ultimately giving myself more anxiety. So I'd love to talk about this a little bit more about the mindset shifts. And if we could talk about that. And Tiffany, if you could just jump back in and review the SAFE acronym.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the SAFE acronym, hand to heart. So we're going to stop. That's our S. We're going to acknowledge what just happened, what the moment is, right? So that's our A. And then the F is going to be, we're going to feel the emotion, right? So let it, whatever the overwhelm, fear, sadness, whatever it is, feel that. And then E is expand. So then that's where we kind of look to like, okay, now how can I move through this, move past this? So yeah, looking with that whole laundry episode, session that you had there, it's like, okay, we stop. Okay, I'm acknowledging that I think the kids are gonna, mess up the laundry. Something's gonna go wrong, and the feelings I'm having is I've got a little bit of fear here. Something may happen, go wrong, and then maybe I have to replace something or whatever that fear is. And then how we expand through that is, what steps can I do where it's like I can still let the kids help with the laundry, right? So maybe I show them like, okay, I'm going to be the one to get out the pod and I'll hand it to you. You drop it in there. And then, okay, maybe we've put the clothes in piles. So now, this pile is what goes in the, so you're guiding while at the same time letting them have some autonomy through that experience. And then just to jump in also with Sarah, I love, 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 love that scheduling yourself. Because sometimes you just have to actually do that. Put yourself on your schedule and it's like, no, I'm in pen right here. Certain things I just need to be in pen and really honoring that because in order for us to keep all the, things in the air, all the balls up, we have to really be able to love and nourish ourselves. That is what kind of keeps us in a more healthier mindset is if we have those moments of reset and connection and self-care.
I love what you were talking about, breaking down that laundry and the to-dos. And I think that this is the part where, like, when we think about the division of responsibility in this particular activity, this is where we don't just give this job to our kids. I think that's the big mistake that we make as parents. It's like, okay, now you do laundry. We're just throwing it at them. We actually have to break it down and think about how do I come alongside and coach you through this? And what are the skills that you need to learn and understand? And of course, we want to make it age appropriate for our children, and so I think that's the biggest piece. Like, I remember there was like a season where the boys were going to learn how to clean their bathroom. And so we started with like, this is how we clean the mirror. And then they were having to learn to use the sprayer and like their skills in all of those. And so we break it down because there's so many sensory experiences through this as well. And sometimes we actually need our children to continue to make those mistakes and for us to give them grace through that, because I think that's where, like, when there's little moments of failure, we can learn. And I think that's part of where we have this culture right now where moms are over functioning because we feel like we're not allowed to make mistakes.
I agree. I think Irene and Tiffany brought up great points of this is a collaborative process and effort where we can coach our kids through this. And I think it's something where we're accommodating the anxiety if we continue to step in and do it ourselves. Like we're not allowing them to learn these strategies and skills on their own. And also we do the same thing with our partners. Oftentimes we say, oh, they're not doing it our way or they're going to fail. We have to allow them to fail so we can step away and do some things on our own as well. So have some free time on our own without that guilt. So I think like the same thing holds true of we can't step in, but we can show them, how we typically do things, because typically if it falls on mom during maternity leave, you can show them or coach them through what the routines and structure and schedule looks like so that you can have those moments rather than continuing to feel like everything has to fall on you. So I think it allows that freedom and autonomy for moms too.
Naseem, I love that you said that about partners, because something that I had to start practicing was learning to accept imperfect help. That was like my mantra for a big season. I was like, I love how my husband's doing this. I love it. And just having to like accept imperfect help, because otherwise, like I did fall back into those things. And I think all of this is like a practice.
One big thing that helped me shift my mindset, and this was years ago, and this is what I tell the moms I work with now all the time, is that when you say no to something, it gives someone else an opportunity to say yes. And it really stuck with me because I was like, I wanted to be room parent. I wanted to be active on the PTA. I want to run my own business. I want to do all these things. But when I said no to being a room parent, someone else had the opportunity to do it and say yes. So I translate it into my house too. Like if I say, no, I'm not going to clean your room for you, it gives my daughters an opportunity to learn how to do it. Is it how I will do it? Absolutely not. They're 7 and 9. But it doesn't matter. At some point, they have to say yes for themselves. Like when I don't pack their bags, when we go to grandma and grandpa's, they pack their own suitcases now. And again, it's a learning opportunity. If they pack great, fantastic. It's never perfect. We're always at Target buying something, but we're going to learn how to do it. So in order to just kind of remind ourselves, like we say yes to everything, or we say no a lot to our kids, say yes to our kids so they can learn along the way too.
This was such a great discussion on ways that we can delegate, ways that we can coach and train others to help take on some of the rituals or routines that we have put on ourselves, invisible tasks, as we often call them, and helps us release a bit more of the mental load of motherhood. So thank you so much for that conversation. And it leads us really well into our next episode, where we're talking about letting go of perfection. And in a lot of ways, recognizing that you can't control everything is a way of letting go, and realizing that there really is nothing perfect. It's just not there.